The glass at the Harborview Conservatory caught the last light like water, and I walked toward it with my name ready. Elena Brooks. The check-in girl smiled, sifted a tray, and pressed a wristband into my hand. Not gold. Grey, flat as parking lot concrete, the colour of waiting rooms. Grey guests stand to the right, she said, nodding at a velvet rope. Signs split the night. Grey to standing, silver to side seating, gold to the garden. Laughter floated from the garden where bracelets flashed like coins. Mara saw me first. Champagne dress, practised warmth, a hand on my father's sleeve. Jax tipped his glass, angled his phone for his followers. My phone buzzed. A notification filled the screen. Confirm within 48 hours. Volunteer caregiver for Richard Brooks, unpaid. Mara drifted close, voice low enough to bruise. Access comes in levels, she murmured. Tonight, you're Grey. It'll be easier if you tap yes now. Family, right? I rolled the band between my fingers. The plastic rasped like cheap tape. Over Mara's shoulder, Jax posted a fresh story from inside the VIP line. Caption bragging about closing on a property deal. No budget for a nurse, but plenty for a toast. Of course. I looked at the girl, the rope, my hand. I'll choose a different door, I said, and set the wristband on the counter. It made a small, dry sound. Tell me, if it were you, decline, negotiate, or just say yes? I turned away as a clock started ticking in my phone anyway. The grey band was still on the counter in my head when I got home. I set my keys down, let the apartment go dark except for the notification pulsing on my phone. 48 hours. Unpaid caregiver for Richard Brooks. Volunteers only. It sounded like a church sign off a highway, except the exit was my life. By day, I'm a public school counsellor. I sit with freshmen who can't breathe before algebra, seniors who stare at the floor after someone posts their secrets at lunch. I write plans, make calls, stand in hallways like a human stop sign. Dad once owned a furniture supply business. Then the market slid, and his confidence slid with it. After my mother died, he married Mara. Efficient the way corporate emails are. Polite, brief, packed with subtext. Since the wedding, you don't get to my father without passing through her inbox. Jax, her son, talks in crescendos. Houses flipped, tokens minted. When a deal falters, he calls it an early chapter. When it pops, he calls it vision. I used to nod as if charisma were a language I might one day speak. My mother left a small legacy, the Lily Fund, because she liked plain names and things that bloom. Her note in neat, slanted print, for education, for art, for whatever helps a soul breathe. Dad kept the papers in a cherry box on the top shelf. The first time Dad scared me, I was grading essays. Unknown number, a nurse asking for next of kin. Dehydration, they said. I drove to the ER, held his wallet, signed forms with shaking hands because nobody else was there. Dad went home the next morning. Nobody asked how he got there. After Mara, invitations thinned. Holidays required RSVPs to her address. Calls went to voicemail. Replies arrived days later with calendar links. When I did get through, Dad sounded like a man in a tunnel. "Kiddo, your work matters," he'd say, then clear his throat. "But numbers pay the bills." I heard the sentence he didn't finish and swallowed it for him. I know soft walls are the most dangerous. A hard wall will bruise you once, then teach you where it stands. A soft wall makes you think you can lean, right up until you sink. With Mara, everything felt cushioned. I'm sure you understand, Elena. It's been hectic. Let's prioritize. At school, my calendar looks like a city. I keep tissues and crisis cards by the door. I practice being steady so other people can fall apart. That night, I sat on the floor and scrolled. Insurance portals, patient portals, portals for the portals. I searched my name and saw a breadcrumb I hadn't noticed. An old secondary email, an address I used in college, listed for caregiver notifications. I hadn't touched that account in years. The sight of it made my scalp prickle, like finding your handwriting on a page you don't remember writing. I clicked into the history. Messages had been sent. Some had been open. Maybe it was an autofill glitch, I told myself. Maybe someone thought they were helping. Maybe. The word felt like a step that isn't there. On the coffee table I drew lines. Licensed caregiver, market rate pay, cost sharing, monthly reports, no signatures on my behalf. I wrote the conditions twice, once in ink, once in a steadier hand, and slid the page under my phone so the ticking wouldn't rattle it. I thought about the Lily Fund and the cherry box, about the last time I saw Dad laugh, before the business, before the pills, before the quiet. I wanted to forgive the people who make survival look like success. I wanted to forgive the part of me that still wanted to be chosen. My phone buzzed. Texts from Aunt Tammy, the cousin who knows every family rumour before breakfast. "Call me when you can," she wrote. "He looks smaller, honey." "Smaller how?" I typed. "Smaller in the way a house looks when the furniture is gone," she replied. "There is an art to staying. There is also an art to leaving." The band at the door had taught me something I hadn't wanted to learn. Access comes in levels, until you stop asking for a level at all. I opened a new email to Mara, CC'd my father. Subject, care plan, conditions. "If you want my help," I typed, "it will be contracted, insured and compensated. I won't perform unpaid clinical labour. Please confirm by tomorrow." I read it twice, then hit send before I could tidy the edges. On my screen the countdown kept pulsing. 47:12. Seen receipts glowed in other threads. Green dots winked and went dark. I picked up my pen and kept writing, because sometimes the only way to make a wall solid is to name it, brick by brick. The reply from Mara arrived before dawn, time-stamped like a warning. Family plan attached. She added a smiley that didn't smile. I opened the PDF and watched a grid crawl across my screen. Boxes for days, boxes for nights, boxes for things that used to have faces. In the corner a neat legend. Gold visits, silver errands, grey support. Beside overnight monitoring in 3-inch blocks, my name repeated like a chant. My name filled the night blocks. Elena, volunteer. Elena, volunteer. Elena, volunteer. Medical budget, $0. I sat very still, as if any movement might spill me. I traced the grid with my finger and felt nothing, the way you feel nothing when a limb falls asleep. Then feeling rushed back, pins and sparks. I forwarded the file to my work account because that's where I keep courage. At lunch I walked across campus to the legal clinic. 2 rooms tucked behind the library, stacked with pamphlets and the smell of copier toner. The attorney wore sensible shoes and a face that had heard everything twice. I told her enough of the story to make a shape, not enough to make a spectacle. She listened without interrupting, then pushed a legal pad toward me. "Don't sign anything with vague liability," she said. "Don't perform unpaid clinical labour when a licensed replacement exists. Audit your access, ports, emails, insurer portals. Get screenshots. Save originals. If they used your name, get the path." "The path," I repeated. The word felt like a handrail. On my way out, she added, softer. "Sacrifice without consent. We call that extraction. You're allowed to name what's happening." Back in my office, I drafted another email, slower this time. Subject, terms for participation. I wrote it like a contract because I needed the structure to hold me up. Licensed caregiver with current credentials. Market rate pay for any hours I agree to cover. Shared costs by asset ratio, not vibes. Monthly reporting open to all stakeholders. No signatures, initials, or implied consent on my behalf, ever. I CC'd Dad again. I even attached a 1-page conditions card I mocked up in Word, simple checkboxes. Before I could hit send, my phone pinged. Aunt Tammy. A screenshot. Jax's story from a dealership. Chrome, reflecting chrome. Closing day, his caption grinned. Below it she'd typed, "Thought y'all were broke." I looked back at the PDF with medical budget, free $0, and felt my mouth go very quiet. I sent the email. The conditions card clicked into the thread like a puzzle piece that belonged there all along. If it were you, what's the one non-negotiable you'd demand before taking even one night? Tell me, I'm listening. For a moment I let myself imagine a reasonable reply. We were wrong. We'll hire a nurse. Thank you. Nothing came. I waited, then stopped waiting. Silence has a weight of its own. Hope is a hazard. The afternoon dissolved into students and bells. A sophomore asked if breaking up could make your hair fall out. A senior told me he didn't know how to walk into his own house. I nodded, took notes, offered resources that sound small until you need them. On a post-it, I wrote a sentence to myself. You can decline and still be loving. I stuck it to my laptop like a quiet oath. Near 5, another notification. Calendar invite. Dinner at Monarch. Private room. From Mara. Let's talk, she added. I changed in the staff restroom, swapped flats for heels I keep in a bag for parent nights. The sky had that pre-storm colour on my drive downtown, bruised and electric. I rehearsed possible openings, possible exits. I told myself I would keep my voice level, let the paper carry the weight. If I felt myself slipping, I would pause, drink water, return to the rails. Monarch's host stand was a sculpture of walnut and dim light. Reservation? The host asked. Brooks, I said. He scanned, then tilted his head at the rope by instinct. Guests for the private room are on the VIP list, he said. What level are you? I looked at the velvet rope, at the word level, at the shadow of a grey band I had already set down. Let's find out, I said. The host hesitated, glanced at the rope, then pressed his earpiece. Ms. Brooks, this way, he said. We slipped past the velvet. The air smelled staged, the table gleamed, and the room waited for a confession. I kept my face still and followed them in. Mara rose as if the room had waited on her cue. Elena, she sang, then to the staff, still and sparkling and privacy. Jax didn't stand. He framed the table with his phone. A leather folder sat at centre. I sat, palm on the conditions card in my purse. Thanks for coming, Mara began. We've had a lot. Your father's health, the market, the foundation dinner. Gala, Jax corrected. And some wires crossed, she finished. Tonight is to get aligned. She nudged the folder toward me. Inside, a 6-month budget in neat columns. Medical care, $0. I turned the page. A staffing grid waited. Under caregiver, someone had typed my name, then a college email I'd abandoned, plus an old phone I no longer owned. Who filled these fields? I asked. Autofill, Jax said. Happens all the time. The point is Dad needs coverage. Nights are the hardest. You're a natural fit. Mara flattened a corner that didn't need flattening. We're in a cash flow crunch, she said. It would be easiest and most loving if you picked up overnights for a bit. Once the next deal closes. Closing day? Jax grinned at his phone. The host brought water. Before he left, I said, 1 moment. He paused. I turned my screen so only he could see Jax's dealership story, time-stamped 2 hours ago. Then the budget line, medical, $0. I'm sorry about earlier, he murmured. A woman at the next table glanced over. Isn't healthcare covered? She asked, not unkind. Coverage isn't care, I said. Tonight it's $0. We're fine, Mara said. I closed the folder. Here's my bottom line, I said. Licensed caregiver, market rate, written contracts, shared costs by asset ratio, monthly reporting to all of us, and no signatures, initials, or toggles under my name. If you want my help, that's the shape. Toggle? Jax echoed, amused. My legal clinic flagged a pre-approval toggle. If I don't say no in time, the system auto-volunteers me as free labour. Period. Mara's smile thinned. You assume the harshest interpretation. This is family. The system is there to streamline. Streamlining without consent is forgery with extra steps, I said. Turn it off. Silence. Even the ice in our glasses seemed to wait, not melt. My hands stayed flat to keep from shaking. My phone buzzed, face down. I didn't look. This isn't me refusing to help, I added. It's me refusing to be invisible while I do it. Why make drama out of paperwork? Jax said. Take nights for a month. We'll revisit. Win-win. What does your win look like? I asked. Mine looks like a contract and a nurse. He glanced at Mara. We can compromise, she said. You take 3 overnights a week. We handle errands and meals. We revisit at quarter's end. If partnerships accelerate... Market conditions, Jax chimed. We'll bring in outside help. Outside help exists now, I said. Hire her now. You're being transactional, Mara said. I'm being specific, I said. Specific keeps people safe. My phone buzzed again. I angled it. Email from the legal clinic. Confirmed. Auto-enroll. On. A thumbnail showed a little switch pushed right. I excused myself to the hallway and opened it fully. The log showed pre-approval flipped 3 weeks ago from Richard's account. Edits made from a device also used for household finance. Of course, Mara synced everything. Back in the room, I set the phone between the water glasses like a card on felt. Turn it off, I said. Her chin lifted. You don't give orders in my house. We're not in your house, I said. But we are in my life. She looked at Dad's empty chair, then at me. Richard wants peace. Peace lives under clarity, I said. Not under switches you don't say out loud. From the dining room came bright laughter. Jax cleared his throat. Let's talk solutions. Great, I said. Hire a nurse, share the bill, put it on paper, turn the toggle off. Mara reached for her phone. Fine, she said. I'll ask the portal team to adjust. Tonight, I said. She exhaled. Tonight. Then my phone lit again. Aunt Tammy. Subject. This made me sick. I opened it. A scanned statement bloomed across the screen, the paper browned at the edges. The Lily Fund, top corner. 2 years back, there's a transfer out to Harborloft, JR Holdings. The amount is blacked out. Approved by Mara Brooks. The room tipped. In the hall, someone laughed too loudly. The sound carried like a blade. Mara was speaking, but I couldn't hear over the low rush in my ears. I closed my eyes for a slow 2. When I opened them, the words on the scan were still there. Not a glitch, not a rumour, a choice. Everything okay? Jax asked, already shaping my answer. I locked the screen. We're done for tonight, I said, barely above a whisper. Elena, Mara began. Tomorrow, I said, and stood so slowly the chair didn't make a sound. My hand found the door. The hallway went soft. The phone buzzed again in my palm, the subject line still there like a bruise. This made me sick. Black. Morning came bright and merciless like a courtroom. If you've ever been auto-volunteered into someone else's crisis, how did you turn the switch off? I drove to my father's house with the scanned statement in my bag. His street looked ordinary. Bins at the curb, a jogger. I parked and exhaled. Mara opened the door before I knocked. He's resting, she said, stepping aside. Lemon oil in the foyer, a mail tray with keys and a cufflink. Dad was at the walnut table, sweater slack on his shoulders. He tried to rise. I lifted a hand. Stay. We'll keep this simple. I laid out 3 things. My conditions card, a printout of the insurer portal with the pre-approval toggle, circled, the Lily Fund transfer that had turned my stomach. Mara stayed standing. Jax slouched, thumbs busy. I kept my voice on rails. First, I said, touching the toggle, this gets turned off today. If my name appears anywhere without consent, signature, initials, login, I report it as fraud, not a threat, a boundary. Mara's mouth made a patient shape. You're dramatizing a tool. It's a lever, I said. Who flipped it? Richard doesn't handle portals, she said. I manage those. For convenience. Jax huffed. Everything's a federal case with you. I tapped the second page. Second, the Lily Fund. 2 years ago, money moved from a fund with my mother's name to a company with yours, Jax. Approved by you, Mara. The note says temporary reallocation. Temporary to when? Dad worried the seam of his sweater. We meant to put it back, he said. Then timing? The market? It didn't come back, I said, gentle and flat. He looked at me. I wanted peace, kiddo. Clarity first, I said. Peace grows there. Mara laced her fingers on the chair back. We're doing our best. This family has carried you as much as you think you've carried it. I'm not here to carry anyone, I said. I'm here to stop being carried by the scruff and told it's love. I slid the card across the table. Licensed caregiver, market rate pay for any hours I agree to, shared costs by asset ratio, monthly reporting, no signatures, no toggles, no implied consent. Meet these and I help. If not, I don't. Jax leaned in. You'd let your father sit with strangers at night because of a form. Because of a history, I said. Forms are where history gets written. Mara read the transfer without blinking. You're not suing anyone, she said. Let's be adults. To be adults, I said. We put things back where they belong. Start with the toggle, then hire the nurse. I slid a second sheet. Agency names, numbers. A star by one that could start tomorrow. Dad's voice went hoarse. Elena, could we not make it heavier? The old pendulum swung, the child wanting yes, the woman refusing to drown. I'm not making it heavier, I said. I'm refusing to pretend it weighs nothing. He blinked. You've always had strong words. They're rails, I said. I hold them when it gets steep. Mara exhaled. Fine, we'll trial a nurse for 2 weeks. You cover 2 nights while we onboard. No, I said, that's the old door. I'm not walking through it. Compromise, Elena. Clarity, I said. I gathered the papers, stacked them like a spine. I'm going to the porch to call the insurer, I said. Text when the toggle is off. When an agency confirms a start date, send the contract. I'll review. I won't sign for you. I rose. Dad's chair scraped. He flinched. Kiddo, he said. I knew about the transfer. I told myself temporary because it hurt less. I thought you might understand. Something softened and held. I understand, I said. I just don't agree. He nodded once, conceding a point already lost. At the entry table I set my phone down and, beside it, a grey wristband I'd picked up from the gala floor without knowing why. I'm returning this, I murmured. Wrong house. On the porch, winter sun was blunt and clean. I called the insurer, declined the volunteer role, and asked for written confirmation. The agent read the file. You're off the plan, Ms. Brooks. My hands shook, not fear, muscles remembering they belonged to me. When I stepped back inside, Mara's phone chimed. Toggle is off, she said. And the nurse? I asked. We'll contact the agency, she said, polished to glass. Today, I said. She didn't promise. She didn't refuse. I looked at my father. He studied the wristband like it might explain me. Forgiveness, I said softly, more to the room than to him, isn't a blank check. If you want mine, you'll have to sign yours. I left before anyone could answer and pulled the door until it latched like a period. By the end of the week, the email arrived. Volunteer status declined, stamped with a case number. A second thread followed, Mara forwarding a contract from Northline Care, start date Monday, caregiver assigned. Anita Caldwell, RN. The invoices were CC'd to all of us with columns I could finally breathe through. Services, hours, rate, subtotal, shared cost. Numbers, yes, but honest ones. Anita called that afternoon. "Quick context?" she asked, voice warm, professional. I told her how Dad prefers tea over coffee, how he forgets afternoon pills when baseball is on, how he pretends he isn't cold until his hands go marble. "Thank you," she said. "You just saved me 3 weeks." I offered to be reachable the first 2 days. Paid hours only. She didn't blink. Jax went quiet online, then posted a photo of an empty watch box with a wry caption, "Reset." Aunt Tammy texted me that the family group chat had stopped humming. Not silent, just calmer like a storefront after someone changes the fluorescent bulbs. At school, a sophomore lingered after our session and touched the doorframe as if it might float away. "Ms. Brooks," she said, "how do you know when a boundary is the right one?" I told her it usually aches at first, the way new shoes do. Then one day you realise you walked home. Dad texted late, learning to reprioritise. No punctuation. I didn't know if he meant money, time, me. I typed, deleted, typed again, then left it, a message that didn't require rescue. On Sunday I dropped off 2 paperbacks, one of poems, one with a baseball on the spine. Anita met me at the door. "Good day," she whispered. "He told me a story about teaching you to keep score." I smiled, felt something loosen, small, not cinematic, but real. On the foyer table, the grey wristband sat exactly where I'd set it. I left it there. Artifacts belong to their eras. I carried the books out to my car and did not look back. Not out of anger, out of alignment. Sometimes justice is simply keeping your own map steady. If you're still here with me, thanks for staying in this quiet. I keep thinking about that grey wristband, how cheap plastic can sort a life into lanes. If any part of this felt familiar, don't let the next chapter slip past. Tap like so the story doesn't get buried, and hit subscribe, the little bell too, so the next late night whisper finds you. Tell me something, just between us. Faced with a 48-hour volunteer caregiver request, do you decline, negotiate, or say yes? And why? I pinned a poll below, A, B, or C, but your comment matters more. I read every single comment. Name a boundary you've drawn lately. Say it out loud. Sometimes the speaking is what makes it real. If you need words, borrow mine. Contracted, insured, compensated. Clarity or nothing. Then breathe. I keep the map steady now. The wristband stays in the tray. I walk my own door. But one more thing, because secrets don't keep. Once someone signed my name like a shadow tracing my hand. The ink looked almost right. Almost. If that ever happened to you, what would your move be? I'll tell you what mine was soon. Meet me there and bring your voice.